The alarm systems across Nexus Prime Station screamed with a sound nobody had heard in 300,000 years. In the Great Council Chamber, representatives from 47 different species stopped their endless debates and looked up at the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the room. Ambassador Krelvoth of the Ashani Collective stood frozen, his four eyes fixed on the sensor readings. His blue skin had turned pale, almost white. The data made no sense. Hundreds of massive objects were appearing at the edge of known space, emerging from subspace like ghosts stepping through walls. "This cannot be correct," Krelvoth said, his voice shaking. "Run the diagnostics again." The station's ancient artificial intelligence, known only as the Custodian, spoke with a voice that filled every corner of the chamber. It was a voice older than most civilizations in the room. "The diagnostics have been run 17 times. The readings are accurate. 342 vessels of unknown origin have entered our detection range. Grand Chancellor Zephril, a tall being with silver scales and 3 arms, moved to the center of the chamber. Her species, the Kelthran, had been part of the council for 600,000 years. She had seen many things, but the fear in her chest now was something new. "Show us visual confirmation," she commanded. The holographic display shifted. The council members watched as their long-range cameras focused on the distant fleet. The ships were enormous, each one larger than anything the council had ever built. Their design was strange, flowing like water frozen in metal. They reflected light in ways that hurt to look at, as if the ships existed slightly outside of normal space. "Custodian," Zephril said quietly, "do you recognize these vessels?" There was a pause. It lasted only 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When the Custodian spoke again, every being in the chamber felt their blood run cold. "Quantum signature analysis is complete. The base technology patterns match Terran origin. Human origin." The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose in every language, creating a wall of sound. Some representatives stood, knocking over their seats. Others activated their communication devices, sending urgent messages to their home worlds. "Impossible," War Marshal Krax then roared. The Vortan warrior slammed his massive fist on his desk, cracking the metal. "The humans were expelled 800,000 years ago. They were barely capable of faster-than-light travel." "Silence!" Zephrael's voice cut through the noise. The chamber slowly quieted. Custodian explained. "The base quantum signatures match human technology from their expulsion era," the AI continued. "However, the technology has evolved far beyond our predictive models. These vessels operate on principles that our current science cannot fully explain." Krelvoth pulled up historical records on his personal display. His hands trembled as he read, "I am accessing the records of the expulsion vote. 800,000 years ago, the Council voted to remove humanity from our ranks. The vote was 412 in favor, 37 against. I know the history," Zephril said coldly. She knew it better than most. Her own ancestor, Grand Chancellor Zephril I, had cast the deciding vote. They refused to follow our laws. They rejected the technology restriction protocols. They insisted on pursuing dangerous research into quantum consciousness, biological modification, and unrestricted artificial intelligence. They were warned, another council member added. They were given a choice. Accept our wisdom and remain, or pursue their reckless path alone. They chose exile, Krelvoth said softly. They took their colony ships and disappeared beyond the galactic rim. Our scouts tracked them for 3,000 years, then lost contact. We assumed they had destroyed themselves. Most young species do, when left without guidance. The holographic display updated again. The human fleet had begun moving, not toward the council space, but parallel to it. They were not attacking. They were positioning. "Open a communication channel," Zephril ordered. "Channel open," the Custodian replied. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the display shifted again. A human appeared before them. She looked young, with dark skin and silver hair, wearing a simple gray uniform. Her eyes were strange, reflecting light like mirrors. She smiled, and it was not a comforting expression. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said in perfect galactic common. "I am Warden. I speak for humanity. You dare return?" Krax then growled. "After you were expelled? After you rejected our authority?" Warden's smile did not change. "We did not return to seek your approval, War Marshal. We are here to inform you of a change in circumstances. What change? Zephyrael asked. We have been gone for 800,000 years, Warden said calmly. In that time, we did exactly what you feared. We advanced without restriction. We explored technologies you deemed forbidden. We evolved beyond your understanding, and now we have returned to claim what is ours. You claim nothing, Zephyrael said firmly. The Council is the supreme authority in this galaxy. In your section of the galaxy, Warden corrected. We have established ourselves across 4,000 star systems beyond your borders. We have built, grown, and thrived. We are not asking for permission. We are informing you of reality. Krelvoth studied the sensor data more carefully. Custodian analyzed the energy signatures of those vessels. Analysis complete, the AI responded. Each vessel generates power equivalent to a Class 7 star. The total energy output of their fleet exceeds the combined production of all Council species. The chamber fell silent. That was impossible. No civilization could generate that much power. The laws of physics themselves should prevent it. You are trying to intimidate us, Krax then said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Warden said simply. We are stating facts. 800,000 years ago, you expelled us because we were dangerous, because we refused to stop growing, because we believed that limits were meant to be challenged, not accepted. She leaned forward. You were right to fear us. We were dangerous, but you made a mistake. What mistake? Zephyrael asked quietly. You thought exile would destroy us, Warden said. Instead, it freed us. Out there beyond your rules and restrictions, we became everything you were afraid we might become. And more. The display behind Warden changed, showing images that made the Council members gasp. Cities that wrapped around entire stars, ships the size of moons, structures that bent space itself, and beings that were human, but also something beyond human, their forms shifting between flesh and energy and pure thought. We are no longer the species you remember, Warden continued. We have defeated death. We have conquered scarcity. We have touched the face of infinity and lived to tell the tale. And now, after 800,000 years, we have come back, not to rejoin you, not to seek your approval, but to establish boundaries. Boundaries? Zephyrael repeated. Yes, Warden said. We are transmitting territorial claims now. You have 30 standard cycles to review them and withdraw from the disputed systems. After that, those systems belong to humanity. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. The communication ended. The holographic display returned to showing the fleet, now holding position at the border of Council space. Silent. Waiting. Patient. Zephyrael looked around the chamber at the faces of fear and anger. She thought of her ancestor, who had voted for humanity's expulsion. She thought of how that decision made 800,000 years ago had just returned to haunt them all. Custodian, she said softly, what is your assessment? The ancient AI was silent for a moment. When it spoke, its voice carried something that sounded almost like sadness. They are not the species we expelled, Grand Chancellor. They are something we have never encountered before, and I do not believe we can stop them. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Galactic Council, supreme authority for millions of years, had just been given an ultimatum by a species they had thrown away. And deep in her heart, Zephyrael knew the terrible truth. They had created this, and now they would pay the price. The neutral zone between human space and Council territory was empty except for stars. That emptiness did not last long. Within hours of Warden's transmission, 3,000 warships from 47 different species gathered in formation. It was the largest military force assembled in 200,000 years. Admiral Thex Coral of the Ashani fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Supremacy. The ship was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment, even though nobody had expected it to actually come. Status report, Thex Coral commanded. All fleet elements in position, his tactical officer reported. We have complete sensor coverage of the zone. Energy weapons charged and ready. Kinetic batteries loaded. We are prepared for any action. Thex Coral nodded. He was old for his species, his blue skin marked with the white patterns of age. He had fought in the Vorten conflict 60,000 years ago. He had seen war, but this felt different. The reports from the Council had been clear. Humanity had changed. They were no longer the primitive species that had been expelled. They were something new, Something dangerous. Movement detected. The sensor officer called out. Single vessel emerging from subspace bearing 047. The holographic display showed a ship appearing from nowhere. It was small compared to the Council fleet, perhaps 200 meters long. Its design was elegant, all smooth curves and flowing lines. It looked more like a work of art than a weapon of war. One ship? Craxthen's voice came over the communication channel from his own command vessel. They send one ship to face our entire fleet? This is an insult. Receiving a transmission, the communications officer reported. Put it through, Thex Coral ordered. Warden's face appeared on the screen. She looked exactly as she had before, young, calm, completely unafraid. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was visible. It was small, with only 3 other crew members. They all had that same strange quality to their eyes, as if they were looking at multiple realities at once. Greetings, Council Fleet, Warden said pleasantly. I am here to discuss the territorial adjustments we transmitted earlier. I assume you have had time to review them? We have reviewed nothing, Craxthen snarled. We are here to demonstrate that the Council will not be threatened by a species we cast out. Your exile was justified then. It remains justified now. I see, Warden said. That is unfortunate. I had hoped we could resolve this peacefully. You are surrounded by 3,000 warships, Thex Coral said carefully. You have one small vessel. I suggest you reconsider your position. Warden tilted her head like a teacher listening to a child say something incorrect. Admiral, with respect, you do not understand the situation. That is not your fault. You have had no contact with us for 800,000 years. You still think in the old terms. Old technology. Old limits. Enough talk, Craxthen roared. Supremacy, target the human vessel. Show them what happens to those who defy the Council. Thex Coral hesitated. Every instinct told him this was wrong. The human showed no fear. Her ship made no defensive moves. It simply floated there as if completely unconcerned about the weapons pointed at it. Admiral, Warden said softly, please don't. Supremacy, Craxthen commanded. Fire! Thex Coral closed his eyes and gave the order. His weapons officer activated the primary cannon. It was a directed energy weapon powered by a contained singularity, capable of vaporizing an entire city in one shot. The power core hummed as it built up the massive charge needed to fire. The charge reached critical. The weapon prepared to fire. And then everything stopped. Every light on the bridge went dark. Every console went silent. The humming of the engines, the whisper of life support, the constant background noise of a living ship, all vanished in an instant. Emergency lights should have activated. They did not. Backup systems should have engaged. They did not. The Supremacy, the most powerful warship in the Council fleet, was completely dead. Report, Thex Coral shouted into the darkness. Nobody answered. He realized with horror that even the atmospheric processors had stopped. They had maybe an hour of breathable air left in the ship. Then the lights came back on. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had happened. But when Thex Coral looked at his displays, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Every system on his ship had been shut down. Not damaged, not destroyed, simply turned off. And the human vessel had not fired a single shot. Warden's face reappeared on the screen. She did not look smug or triumphant. She looked sad. I'm sorry, Admiral, she said. I tried to warn you. 800,000 years ago, we were barely learning to manipulate quantum fields. Today we exist partly in quantum space. Your ship, your weapons, your shields, they all run on technology we consider primitive. We can interface with them as easily as you might open a door. Across the fleet, panic spread. If the most powerful warship could be shut down without a shot fired, what chance did anyone have? This is not possible, Thex Coral whispered. It is possible because we made it possible, Warden replied. When you expelled us, you told us we were too dangerous, that our pursuit of unlimited advancement would destroy us. You were wrong. It saved us. It made us strong. It made us into something you cannot fight. What do you want? Thex Coral asked. The question tasted like ash in his mouth. I want you to understand, Warden said. The galaxy you remember does not exist anymore. We claimed 4,000 systems beyond the rim. We built a civilization that spans a third of this galaxy. We have technologies you dismissed as impossible. We have achieved things you said could not be done. And now we are here, informing you that 40% of what you consider Council space is actually within our territorial boundaries. A new holographic map appeared, transmitted from Warden's ship. It showed the galaxy with new borders drawn across it. Hundreds of systems that the Council had controlled for millions of years were now marked in blue, the color of humanity's claim. "You cannot simply take our territory," another admiral shouted over the channel. "We already have," Warden said simply. "We have stations in those systems. We have populations there. We have been there for 50,000 years, building slowly, growing quietly, while you continued your debates and your politics. You never noticed because you never looked. You assumed we had destroyed ourselves. You assumed exile meant death." She stood up on her bridge and the camera followed her. Behind her, a window showed the stars. 800,000 years ago, you made a choice, Warden continued. You decided that safety was more important than growth. That stability was more important than advancement. That fear should govern progress. We made a different choice. We chose to grow, to evolve, to become more than we were, and now we stand here strong and alive while you cower behind weapons that cannot touch us. What happens now? Thex Coral asked quietly. Now you make another choice, Warden said. You have 30 cycles to withdraw from the disputed systems. Remove your stations, your citizens, your claims. After that, those systems belong to humanity. If you comply, we will establish peaceful boundaries. If you do not, we will remove you ourselves. And if we fight? Krax then demanded. Warden looked directly at him. For the first time, her expression hardened. War Marshal, I have seen your military records. You are a warrior of great renown. You have won 43 major battles. You are considered the finest strategic mind in the Council. So let me speak to you as one warrior to another. She walked closer to the camera. Her mirror-like eyes seemed to see through the screen into Kraxathen's soul. If you fight us, you will lose, she said flatly. Not eventually. Not after a long war, immediately, completely. We can shut down every weapon system you have. We can stop your ships mid-flight. We can render your strongest shields useless. We have fought wars you cannot imagine, against enemies that would make your worst nightmares seem pleasant, and we won, every single time. The communication channel was silent. 3,000 warships containing millions of personnel, and not one voice dared to speak. We are not here to destroy you, Warden said, her voice softening. We are here to establish boundaries. We are here to claim what we have built. We are here to ensure that what happened to us never happens again. You expelled us when we were weak. You feared what we might become. Now we are strong and we remember what you did. But we are also wise enough not to make the same mistakes you made. What does that mean? Thex Coral asked. It means we are offering you a choice, Warden replied. Accept the new reality. Recognize our sovereignty. Establish peaceful coexistence. Or cling to your old authority and face the consequences. The decision is yours, but choose wisely. You will not get another chance. The transmission ended. The human vessel, the Odyssey Eternal, simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving no trace except a brief quantum ripple. Thex Coral sat in his command chair, staring at the empty space where the ship had been. Around him, his crew looked to him for orders. But what orders could he give? How could you fight an enemy that could shut down your weapons with a thought? How could you negotiate with a power that had just demonstrated complete technological superiority? The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 6 days without break. In those 6 days, a unity that had lasted millions of years cracked like glass under pressure. By the end, 3 distinct factions had emerged, each believing they alone held the path to survival. Ambassador Lithara of the Sorianth Federation stood before the council chamber, her tentacles gesturing with elegant precision. Her species was known for diplomacy, for seeing solutions where others saw only conflict. She had spent the last 4 days reviewing every scrap of data about humanity's return, and what she had found terrified and amazed her in equal measure. We must pursue immediate peace negotiations, she said, her voice carrying the melodic tones of her native language. Humanity has demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority. Fighting them would be suicide. Coward. War Marshal Krax then stood, his massive frame dominating his section of the chamber. The Vorten Empire does not bow to threats. We have faced extinction before. We have always prevailed through strength. Your strength is irrelevant, Lithara replied calmly. They disabled the supremacy without firing a shot. How will you fight an enemy that can turn off your weapons with a thought? Then we build better weapons, Krax then growled. We activate the ancient arsenal from the last war. We mobilize every species. We show these upstart humans that the Council is not to be trifled with. Grand Chancellor Zephyriel raised her hand for silence. The gesture was old, traditional, and still carried weight. The chamber quieted, though the tension remained thick enough to cut. "We will hear all proposals," she said. "The Dominion Coalition has requested to speak." Krax then stepped forward, flanked by representatives from 12 other military-focused species. Behind him, holographic displays showed fleet compositions, weapon specifications, and battle plans. "The Dominion Coalition proposes a preemptive strike," he announced. "We have 500 warships ready to launch immediately. We strike at their forward positions before they can establish a stronger foothold. We hit hard, fast, and without mercy." "And when they shut down all 500 ships?" Lithara asked. "What then?" "We have awakened the Omega Gate," Krax then said, and the chamber fell silent. The Omega Gate was a weapon from 200,000 years ago, used in the last great galactic war. It could collapse stars. It could tear holes in space itself. It had been sealed away because it was too dangerous, too terrible to ever use again. "You would risk destroying entire systems?" Zephyriel asked, her voice sharp. "The Omega Gate killed billions in the last war. We swore never to use it again." "We swore many things," Krax then replied. "But this is an existential threat. Better to destroy a few systems than lose the entire galaxy." "That is insanity," Lithara said. "The Reconciliators formally oppose any military action. We have been attempting to open channels of communication with humanity, and we have succeeded." She activated her own display. Warden's face appeared, recorded from a private transmission. "Ambassador Lithara has asked me to explain our intentions," Warden's image said. "I will be honest with you because I respect your pursuit of peaceful resolution. We do not want war. We do not want conquest. We want recognition. We want the galaxy to acknowledge that we exist, that we have rights, that we are equals." The recorded Warden gestured, and images appeared behind her. Cities that stretched across continents, space stations that housed billions, ships that moved through space like living things, and people, humans in forms both familiar and strange, living lives of peace and prosperity. "In 800,000 years we have achieved what you considered impossible," Warden continued. "We cured aging. We eliminated poverty. We created technology that allows consciousness to exist in multiple forms. We explored the dark spaces between galaxies and survived. We encountered threats that would have destroyed your civilization, and we defeated them." "What threats?" Lithara's recorded voice asked. 3 times we faced extragalactic invaders," Warden replied. "The first was a machine intelligence that consumed entire star systems for raw materials. The second was a hive mind organism that infected and controlled biological life. The third was something we still do not fully understand. A force that existed partially outside normal space-time. We defeated all 3 alone without help, because you had made it clear that we were on our own." The recording paused. Lithara looked around the chamber. "They faced extinction-level threats," she said, 3 times. "And they never contacted us, never asked for help, never warned us. Because we expelled them, because we told them they were not wanted." "Good," Krax then said. "Let them face their threats alone. They chose exile." "We chose exile for them," Zephyriel corrected quietly. "That is the truth we must face. They did not leave willingly. We forced them out because they were dangerous," another council member shouted. "And they became more dangerous," Lithara said. "But they also became wise. Look at these images. Do you see a species bent on conquest? Do you see armies of destruction? No, you see a civilization that has achieved peace within itself. They mastered the very dangers we feared, and they survived." "Pretty pictures mean nothing," Krax then scoffed. "I have mobilized the Dominion Coalition. 500 ships are ready. 16 species have committed to military action. We launch in 3 days. And I have mobilized the Reconciliators," Lithara countered. 22 species have committed to peaceful negotiation. We will not participate in your suicide mission." Zephyriel felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. The council was splitting apart. Some wanted war, some wanted peace, and she, as Grand Chancellor, had to find a middle path. "The pragmatist bloc proposes containment," she announced. "We neither attack nor submit. We establish defensive positions. We gather intelligence. We seek to understand their weaknesses." "They have no weaknesses," Lithara said sadly. "Everything has weaknesses," Zephyriel replied. "We simply have not found theirs yet." Over the next 2 days, as the factions argued and planned, something unexpected happened. Humanity released a data package. It arrived simultaneously at every council world, every station, every ship. It was massive, containing 800,000 years of human history, art, science, and philosophy. Those who accessed it found themselves drawn into a story unlike anything they had known. They saw humanity's early days after exile, struggling to survive in the cold dark between galaxies. They saw the near extinction, a period when humans almost destroyed themselves through war and environmental collapse. They saw the Great Awakening, when humanity finally achieved unity and began to build rather than destroy. But they also saw the dark millennia, centuries of horror when humans, alone and desperate, committed atrocities against themselves. The records did not hide these sins. They displayed them openly, honestly, as warnings and lessons. A young council analyst named Vector spent 14 hours straight reviewing the package. When he emerged, his colleagues found him sitting in his quarters, staring at nothing. "What did you see?" they asked. "Everything," he whispered. "They showed us everything. The good and the terrible. They were monsters once. They admitted it. They documented it. They made sure they would never forget it. And then they became something better, something we can barely comprehend." The cultural package spread like wildfire. Some council members tried to ban it, claiming it was propaganda, but it was too late. Billions of citizens across the galaxy had already seen it, and many of them began to ask uncomfortable questions. Why did we expel them? Were we right to do so? What might we have learned if we had helped them instead of casting them out? On the third day, as Krax then prepared to launch his attack, disaster struck. The 500 warships of the Dominion Coalition entered human space. They targeted a small outpost on the edge of human territory, a station with fewer than 10,000 inhabitants. The attack began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. 500 warships armed with weapons that could crack worlds. They fired in unison, unleashing enough destructive power to glass an entire planet. The human station's shields absorbed the attack without strain. Then something happened that no one had predicted. The 500 warships simply vanished. No explosion, no debris, no energy signature. They were there one moment and gone the next. The council waited for reports. None came. They sent scout ships. The scouts found nothing, not even wreckage. 500 warships containing 200,000 personnel had simply ceased to exist. Panic spread through the Dominion Coalition. Krax then demanded answers. The military analysts had none to give. It was impossible. Ships that size could not just disappear. The laws of physics would not allow it. Then 12 hours after the attack, a transmission arrived. It was Warden, her face calm but her eyes hard. "Your warriors are safe," she said. "They are in suspended animation aboard their ships. The ships have been moved to a holding area within our space. They will be returned to you unharmed in 7 days. Consider this a lesson." "A lesson in what?" Zephyrael demanded. "A lesson in consequences," Warden replied. "You attacked us. We defended ourselves, but we did not kill anyone. We could have. It would have been easy, but we chose mercy. We chose to show you that even now, after 800,000 years, after becoming powerful enough to destroy you, we still value life, even yours." The rescue mission consisted of 12 ships from the Reconciliator faction. Ambassador Lithara led the expedition personally, despite the protests of her security staff. She believed that if anyone was going to meet humanity face to face in their own territory, it should be someone committed to peace. The journey to the coordinates Warden provided took 3 days. When they arrived, what they found made Lithara's primary heart skip a beat. The 500 warships of the Dominion Coalition floated in perfect formation, completely intact. They were powered down but showed no signs of damage. It was as if they had simply been placed there, like toys arranged by a child. Receiving a transmission from the flagship, her communications officer reported. The message was not from Krax then or any of the Coalition commanders. It was a recording left by Warden. Her face appeared on the screen, and behind her was the bridge of the Coalition flagship. She was sitting in the commander's chair. "Welcome, Ambassador Lithara," the recording said. "Your warriors are safe. They are in medical suspension and will wake naturally once returned to council space. They will remember nothing of their capture. We saw no reason to traumatize them further, but we needed you to see this, to understand what you are dealing with." The camera pulled back, showing the entire bridge. It was empty except for Warden. Every station was unmanned, every screen dark except for basic life support. We took 500 warships without destroying a single one, Warden continued. We transported them across 70 light-years in an instant. We put 200,000 warriors to sleep without harming them. And we did all of this in less time than it takes your heart to beat. This is not a boast. This is a fact. We want you to understand the gap between us. Lithara felt her tentacles trembling. The level of technology required to do what Warden described was beyond anything the Council possessed. It was beyond anything they had even theorized as possible. We are inviting a select group from the Reconciliator faction to visit our space, Warden said. We will show you what we have built, what we have become, and then you can report back to your council and tell them the truth. The choice of what happens next will be theirs. The recording ended. A moment later, a new transmission arrived. This one was live. Warden appeared, this time from a different location. She was standing on what appeared to be an observation deck, with stars visible through massive windows behind her. Ambassador Lithara, she said warmly, thank you for coming. Will you accept our invitation? Lithara looked at her crew. They were afraid. She could see it in their body language, but they trusted her. She had led them this far. She would lead them further. We accept, Lithara said. Excellent, Warden replied. We are transmitting coordinates now. We will guide you to the nearest gateway. Gateway? Warden smiled. You will see. The journey took them deeper into human territory than any council ship had traveled in 800,000 years. What they found there shattered every assumption Lithara had about the limits of civilization. The first world they visited was called New Earth. It orbited, a yellow star similar to humanity's ancient home sun. As they approached, Lithara's sensors began reporting impossible readings. The planet's population was listed as 47 billion. That was more than most council species had in their entire civilization. How? She whispered. How do you feed that many people? We do not need to feed them in the traditional sense, Warden explained. She had boarded Lithara's ship as a gesture of trust. Most humans exist in a post-biological state. We can upload our consciousness into different forms. Some choose biological bodies. Others prefer digital existence. Still others exist as pure energy. We move between forms as easily as you might change clothes. She led them to the surface in a shuttle that moved without any visible means of propulsion. The city that greeted them was like something from a dream. Buildings that reached into the clouds, constructed from materials that seemed to shift and flow. Streets filled with humans in countless forms, some biological, some mechanical, some that defied easy classification, and everywhere an overwhelming sense of peace and prosperity. There is no poverty here, Warden said as they walked through a plaza. No hunger, no disease. We cured these problems 40,000 years after exile. Every human has access to unlimited resources, unlimited knowledge, unlimited opportunity. But how? Lithara asked. The Council's economic models show that such a society should collapse. Without scarcity, without struggle, civilizations become weak. You were taught wrong, Warden replied gently. Scarcity does not make a species strong. It makes them desperate. When we eliminated scarcity, we did not become weak. We became free. Free to pursue art, science, philosophy, exploration. Free to become our best selves rather than just surviving. Over the next week, Warden showed them wonders that made Lithara weep with their beauty and impossibility. They visited a Dyson sphere, a complete shell built around a star to capture all of its energy. They saw shipyards where vessels were constructed by nanomachines that could reshape matter at the atomic level. They witnessed humans who had lived for 300,000 years, their minds stored in quantum computers between physical incarnations. But Warden also showed them the dark places. She took them to a museum called the Hall of Shame. It was a massive structure that documented humanity's failures and atrocities. The dark millennia were displayed in horrifying detail. Genocides, environmental destruction, wars that killed billions. The records did not hide or excuse these crimes. They presented them honestly, brutally. Why show us this? One of Lithara's officers asked. Why not hide your sins? Because forgetting them would doom us to repeat them, Warden replied. Every human child is taught this history. We do not pretend we were always noble. We became noble by confronting our darkness and choosing to do better. This is what the Council never understood. Progress requires acknowledging mistakes, not hiding from them. On the fifth day, Warden took them to a place she called the Arsenal. It was a station hidden in the depths of space, far from any inhabited world. The security was absolute. Even Warden needed authorization from 3 other sources to enter. Inside, they found weapons that made the Council's arsenal look like primitive clubs. Starbreakers that could cause supernovas, quantum bombs that could erase entire systems from existence, planet crackers that split worlds in half, biological weapons that could sterilize galaxies. These are kept as reminders, Warden explained. Her voice was heavy with sadness. Reminders of what we could do if we chose to. We keep them locked here, never to be used unless existence itself is threatened. Each weapon represents a choice we made not to use it, a temptation we overcame. You could destroy the Council, Lithara said quietly. You could erase us from existence. Yes, Warden agreed. But that is not who we are. Not anymore. We spent 200,000 years learning that power without wisdom is destruction. We mastered the power. Now we seek to share the wisdom. The final revelation came on the 7th day. Warden took them to a research station at the edge of human space. There, scientists were studying something that made Lithara's blood run cold. It was a ship. But not a human ship. It was massive, 10 times larger than anything humanity or the Council had ever built. Its hull was covered in symbols that hurt to look at. And it was clearly dead, destroyed by weapons of unimaginable power. This is what we did not tell you, Warden said. 3 times in 800,000 years we were invaded from beyond the galaxy. Beings from other dimensions, other realities. They came to conquer, to consume, to destroy, and we stopped them. She pulled up battle recordings. Lithara watched in horror as human fleets engaged enemies that defied understanding. Creatures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that could create black holes as weapons, beings that consumed planets like food. The first invasion happened 300,000 years after exile, Warden continued. We had just achieved post-biological existence. They came through a tear in space and attacked 17 of our worlds. We lost 40 billion people before we could mount an effective defense. It took us 50 years to develop weapons that could hurt them. Another century to drive them back and seal the portal they came through. Why did you not warn us? Lithara demanded. If such threats exist, the Council needs to know. We tried, Warden said softly. After the first invasion, we sent a message to Council space. We explained what had happened. We offered our research. We asked for cooperation in case they returned. Do you know what response we received? Lithara shook her head. Silence, Warden said. Complete silence. The Council did not even acknowledge our message. You had expelled us. You had made it clear we were not wanted, so we stopped trying. We defended ourselves alone. She turned to face Lithara directly. The second invasion happened 200,000 years later. The third was just 50,000 years ago. Each time we fought. Each time we won. Each time we protected not just ourselves but this entire galaxy. Because if those things had gotten past us, they would have reached Council space, and you would have had no defense against them. The weight of that truth settled on Lithara like a physical burden. Humanity had saved them. 3 times. And the Council had never known. The Council chamber had never been this full. Every species, every faction, every voice that mattered in galactic politics had sent representatives. The galleries were packed with observers. News feeds from 1,000 worlds broadcast the proceedings. Everyone knew that what happened here would determine the future of the galaxy. Grand Chancellor Zephyrael stood at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of millions of years of history pressing down on her shoulders. In her hands, she held the data crystal that contained Ambassador Lithara's report. She had read it 17 times. Each time it had become harder to deny the truth. The vote is called, she announced. The motion before us is simple. We will recognize humanity as a sovereign power with equal status to the Council. We will acknowledge their territorial claims. We will establish formal diplomatic relations. A vote in favor means accepting the new galactic order. A vote against means maintaining our current stance. And war. Krax then added from his seat. The war marshal looked older now, his confidence shaken by the disappearance and return of his fleet. Let us not pretend otherwise. A vote against is a vote for conflict. A conflict we cannot win, Lithara said. She stood, her tentacles moving with unusual agitation. I have seen their civilization. I have walked their worlds. I have witnessed their technology. And I tell you with absolute certainty, that we cannot defeat them. We can only choose to coexist or face annihilation. Cowardice, someone muttered from the back. Wisdom, Lithara shot back. There is a difference between cowardice and recognizing reality. They have offered us peace. They have shown restraint when they could have shown violence. They returned our warriors unharmed when they could have killed them all. What more proof do you need of their intentions? The debate raged for hours. Representatives stood and made passionate speeches. Some argued for peace, citing the evidence of humanity's strength and restraint. Others argued for defiance, claiming that surrender would mean the end of the Council's authority. Still others proposed compromise solutions that satisfied no one. Zephrel listened to it all, saying little. She was Grand Chancellor, but she could not make this decision alone. The vote had to be legitimate. The species of the galaxy had to choose their own path. Then, in the middle of a particularly heated argument, the alarm sounded. Every display in the chamber turned red. The custodian's voice rang out with an urgency that sent chills through everyone present. Emergency alert. Massive spatial distortion detected at coordinates 77 Alpha. Unidentified fleet entering normal space. Energy signatures do not match any known civilization. The holographic display shifted, showing the sensor readings. What it revealed made the blood drain from Zephrel's face. A fleet was emerging from a tear in space itself. Hundreds of ships, each one massive and irregular in shape. Their hulls were organic, pulsing with sickly light, and they were heading directly toward the nearest council world. "It's a harvester fleet," someone whispered in horror. The name sent panic through the chamber. The harvesters were nightmare stories, ancient legends of an extra-galactic threat that consumed entire civilizations. They appeared without warning, devoured everything in their path, and vanished back into the void. They had not been seen in 3 million years. Most people had thought they were myths. Projected casualties? Zephrel demanded. The custodian ran the calculations in milliseconds. If the fleet continues on its current course, it will reach the Pelion system in 48 hours. Population 7 billion. Projected survival rate 0. If they continue deeper into council space, estimated total casualties across all species 70%. Estimated time to develop effective countermeasures 50 years. 50 years. By then, there would be nothing left to save. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some calling for evacuation, others for military mobilization. Krax then was already on his communicator, trying to organize a defensive fleet, but everyone knew it was hopeless. If the harvesters were real, if they were as dangerous as the ancient records claimed, then the Council had no defense against them. Then a new voice cut through the panic. It came from every speaker in the chamber, calm and clear. "This is Warden. We have detected the harvester incursion. We are responding." The display shifted, showing a new sensor feed. The human fleet was already moving. Hundreds of vessels emerged from subspace, positioning themselves between the harvesters and the Pelion system. The Council fleet was still mobilizing, still arguing about tactics. The humans were already there. "Stand by," Warden said. "We are engaging the threat." "Wait," Zephrel tried to say, but the transmission had already closed. The Council watched in real time as humanity faced the harvesters. The battle was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The harvester ships were enormous, their weapons capable of tearing through shields and armor like paper. Their numbers seemed endless, more ships pouring through the spatial tear every moment. But the humans fought with precision and power that defied belief. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons cut through harvester hulls with surgical accuracy. When the harvesters tried to overwhelm them with numbers, the humans simply adjusted, their formation flowing like water around obstacles. The battle lasted 4 hours. In that time, 10,000 harvester ships entered normal space. 10,000 harvester ships were destroyed. The humans did not lose a single vessel. When it was over, when the last harvester had been reduced to debris, Warden's face appeared on the display again. She looked tired but satisfied. "The threat has been neutralized," she reported. "The spatial tear has been sealed. Your worlds are safe." The council chamber sat in absolute silence. They had just witnessed the impossible. A threat that should have taken 50 years and billions of lives to defeat had been stopped in 4 hours by a species they had expelled 800,000 years ago. "Why?" Krax then asked, his voice broken. "Why did you help us? We voted against you. We were going to deny your sovereignty. Why save us? Warden's expression softened. Because it was the right thing to do. Because we have faced the harvesters twice before, and we know how to fight them. Because when we see people in danger, we help. That is who we are. That is who we chose to become. She leaned forward, looking directly at the council. 800,000 years ago, you expelled us because you feared what we might become. You thought we would be monsters. You were not entirely wrong. We had that potential, but we also had the potential to be heroes. We chose the harder path. We chose to master our darkness and embrace our light. And now we stand before you not as conquerors, but as saviors. Zephyriel felt tears running down her face. She was not the only one. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species were weeping openly. They had been given a gift they did not deserve. They had been saved by beings they had rejected. The vote, Lithara said softly. We must vote. Zephyriel nodded. She activated the voting system, her hands trembling. All in favor of recognizing humanity as a sovereign power with equal status to the council. The votes came in quickly. Green lights appeared on the display, one after another. Species after species choosing to accept the new reality. When the final count appeared, Zephyriel had to read it twice to believe it. 407 in favor, she announced. 40 against. The motion passes. Humanity is hereby recognized as a sovereign power. Their territorial claims are acknowledged. Formal diplomatic relations are established. The chamber erupted in applause. It was not the polite acknowledgement that usually followed votes. It was genuine relief, gratitude, and hope. They had been given a second chance. A chance to do right by a species they had wronged. Warden's face showed something like surprise. 89% in favor. That is, more than I expected. You saved us, Zephyriel said simply. How could we do anything less? You could have chosen pride over gratitude, Warden replied. Many civilizations would. I am pleased that you chose differently. The negotiations for the formal treaty took 3 weeks. In the end, humanity gained full recognition, territorial sovereignty over 4,000 systems, and a permanent seat on the council with veto power over military actions. In exchange, they agreed to share certain defensive technologies and to act as first responders to extra-galactic threats. But the treaty contained one clause that surprised everyone. Humanity requested permission to establish cultural exchange programs, educational partnerships, and joint research initiatives. They wanted to share what they had learned, to help other species advance, to ensure that what had happened to them never happened to anyone else. On the day the treaty was signed, Zephyriel met with Warden privately in a small conference room. It was just the two of them, no staff, no observers. I need to ask you something, Zephyriel said. Did you plan this? The harvester attack, I mean. Did you know it was coming? Warden was silent for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. We detected quantum fluctuations that suggested a harvester incursion was possible. We did not create it. We did not cause it. But we knew it might happen during the vote. And you did not tell us? Would you have believed us? Warden asked. Or would you have thought it was a trick, a manipulation, a way to force your hand?